Hey everyone, this is Sean from Thorn Games. Haven't done an update in a really long time, so I'm going to tell you about the game that I've been working on bit by bit, and also a little update on my life and what happened with my last game. Alright, so firstly, what am I working on now? This is a game called Shrubs, and I've been thinking about it and planning it for a long time, but I've been procrastinating and other stuff's happened in my life, which meant that I couldn't get much done, and feeling pretty low motivation. So I'll explain all that later. But about the game, it's going to be a third-person, single-player uh, creature management farming game, where you will be taking care of a herd of these little rabbit sheep things, um, and you will take care of them. Then they grow. They're actually like sheep. Well, they're called shrubs, and that's the name of the game, probably shrubs. Um, and they're like these kind of rabbit sheep things that grow flowers pretty much. So yeah, you have your flock and you take care of them. You plant different flowers on them and things like that. Um, Still got to explore and find out what the loop is. And part of the reason that I want to do this video again is to just get back to that old habit I had when I was working on Unstung, my first game, where at certain checkpoints when I felt like I'd done something pretty cool, I just wanted to show it. Um, and this project has gotten quite far in terms of planning and design, and I haven't shown anything yet. This is going to be like an update video. So yeah, like there's the rabbit models at the moment, but it would be a unique character design in the end. Um, and they have like a whole biology and like a system behind how they behave and how you take care of them. The idea is that you herd them around, you got to take care of them kind of like walking dogs. You know, you got to like take them out for a run so that when they're generally like sheep, but they stay still, and then you've got to like go around the town, call them and guide them around for a walk so they can come and eat this sundew. It's like sun drops, um, and they've got to eat it up. You got to give them water, tend to them so they don't get overgrown or viruses and so on. Unlock different types of them, different types of flowers, and yeah, some kind of economy involving the flowers. So yeah, that's it. And I'm still just starting. This is like a prototype, very minimal. Just basically to lay down the scale of the game, the way the viewpoint carry the camera might work. Yeah, so that's all I have at the moment, and this is just a map that an asset from the store, and it's this asset is just to help me kind of frame the experience a bit in terms of like scale and the general vibe. Like it's got buildings over there, so when the prototype sort of builds up a bit, I might put characters around that you've got to do quests for, or I could just use the landscape as kind of put some obstacles in, put some get the game loop happening. All right, so I don't want this video to go too long, so I'll show you another scene that I worked on a couple of weeks ago, um, and this one was. I'll tell you about the shaders. So um, pretty much a couple of weeks ago, I decided to learn more about shaders using shader graphs. So I found this Pokemon character on Sketchfab as a base. Um, and then I use this just to experiment a bit. So firstly, vertex colors. I just opened up Blender and applied vertex colors to it. And for what you're seeing at the moment, it's also got ambient screen space, ambient occlusion on as well. That gives it the gentle shadows. And then I did some experiments with outline, which were pretty cool. However, I don't think I'll be going with outlines because it adds too much noise to the game. Um, and and if it's not, and it's kind of like because it relies on normals, it wasn't really that great. So I had a few different iterations of outline. Then I learned about toon lighting, little dive into Fresnel effect. Um, I did another full screen style of outline, but I'm not showing them. Then I did these painterly shadows. So that was from somewhere on the internet. I found a technique for kind of offsetting the shadow positions based on a texture, so that you get this kind of painterly effect, as well as having a kind of a bleed edge on that shadow, kind of mimicking watercolor. And then I was just playing around with a triplanar texture applied to the whole thing. Because so with all this, what I'm trying to do is figure out an art style where I can start off with a very basic model, and then just through shaders and a few basic textures is end up with something pretty cool. So that's a triplanar texture there, and then I combined it all. And at this point, I realized like I could get pretty close to those old Pokemon concept art, like from the original Pokemon illustrations. So you can see here I've got like a desaturated triplanar filter. I've got a white rim light, which kind of looks like stroke lines. Um, and I've also got the shadow there with the bleeding edge there. And then I just did a little test of like a crosshatch kind of shadows and shading. It looks cool when it's in a still image, but it doesn't quite work when things are moving in the scene, because either the shadow is, well, when a character moves in the scene, I'll show you what it looks like then. Sketch shading. Um, so in this case, I've got the shadow stuck on the relative to the object space, um, which had its own issues. And then when I put it in world space, it just didn't look right. So yeah, sketch shadows were fun, but I probably won't keep that up. And then I did an outline where I applied a random noise to it, but it's not shown here. Look, I'll turn them on. Hang on. I've just got to open my project settings, and what does it? Change my renderer pipeline asset. Because I've got a separate kind of sandbox area that I've been working with this stuff. Um, that one. Okay, so I didn't test it just before. I didn't test before coming back here, so things might not quite be right. Um, I don't know what that big thing there. Oh yeah, the last thing I was testing out is having two outlines, so one ink and one like a edge, so that you had this effect of like I was trying to think about how in illustration, in physical illustrations, they have their ink line, and then when they're painting watercolor, they don't go near the line, or sometimes they overshoot it. And I was trying to get that effect there, and yeah, it just ends up looking really noisy though. That's why I don't really like it. Um, and I can show you the other things that I did. Let's just turn them all on and see what happens. Okay, so right now I've got the outline on that does the whole scene, just based on depth differences. Um, that was interesting, but I'll turn that off. And then outline V1 was my first attempt. Outline V2, I tried to get it a more consistent thickness. And then Outline V3, that's the one I just turned off. And then combined, you can see that that looks pretty cool. Like that looks kind of like an illustration there. And then sketch outline. Well, that is pretty, I think that's this one here. And that was with having a random variation on the sketch, on the outline thickness, um, which looked cool, but you know, relying on normals for outlines, I just wasn't that happy with it. Um, and then after that, I started to get into how to make this constant thickness outline, and I got pretty far, I think. But anyway, what else I got to show you is another scene where I applied a lot of those effects that I was working on. So um, this is using my double outlines and watercolor filters and things. And it's my latest iteration of the outline, and there's a problem with it at particular map depths, but um, like map positions, it changes. But yeah, here you go. You can see pretty constant thickness outlines. Trying to go for a kind of illustration look. Yeah, but at least like this helped me learn a lot about shaders and thinking in, world space, object space, normals, and so on. Um, and yeah, it's fun, like to try to imitate that kind of messy, random watercolor kind of illustrations where there's some light areas and like even in the old Pokemon illustrations, they seem to have these big white spaces that were just, it's not depicting light, it's just white, it's just empty. Yeah, so that's my little demo scene. And these originally were just very plain um, trees and rocks, solid colors, I think. So I've gone from solid color props to what you see here, and that's pretty cool. All right, so a little bit more about my shrubs project is back in September, I prepared a project pitch for Screen Australia, and that was to try to get development funding. And I was going to work on my own, but also hiring an artist and also some lawyer fees. And for that, I put together a pitch of about 10 slides, and I've got copies of it here in this document. So, yeah, like I had to do a video, I had a pitch showing my inspirations and my goals for it and the reason why I should get the funding, and submitted that in October or September, October. And then I was notified in December that I was not successful, so that sucks. And that really like sucked a lot of motivation out of me. From December through to now, I've done very little work on the project. But in that time period between when I prepared the pitch, and when I heard about that I was unsuccessful, I did a lot of work on the game because I was anticipating getting that funding. So I put together this game design document which goes over narrative, systems, characters, story, mood, art, direction, audio, mechanics, blah, 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 game states, UI. All these things were done while I was waiting to see if I got funding. And then I didn't get funding, and I just kind of shut down. Yeah, so that's my pitch document. On top of that, another reason that I've been pretty like just overall is um, I really made a career pivot back in around 2020 to get into games, And lucky for me, I got a job in a game studio and then another game studio, and that was good. And then I moved to Vietnam and I worked on my own game called The Wizards for VR. I worked on it for a year and then released it and basically sold nothing. But luckily for me, that this game did have funding from Meta, so it was worth it in the end. But the long-term effect of me moving to Vietnam is that well, I had to quit my studio job to do that, and now I'm back in Australia, and the games industry is imploding. There has been, since I got back here, I've been monitoring job boards, and there's been barely any jobs in Australia. And I was unsuccessful in expressions of interest and applying for jobs uh, in the Australian industry. So for me now, even though I enjoy making games and I was starting to get into production or design, um, the truth is that I need to survive, and I couldn't do that in the games industry, and it might be 3 to 5 years before that's even viable again. So, like, um, I've been working a desk admin job, um, full-time admin job for a construction company, and that has been, you know, I've been careful to not get distracted by working on games and building up this idea that like, wow, maybe if I make another amazing game, I could get income and then I wouldn't have to have this desk job anymore, this office job. But like, I'm careful of that because it like 99% chance that it won't happen. So I've been getting used to the feeling that what I make with this stuff, whatever these little characters are, this is my art and I do it because I like it. And I have characters and stories that I would like people to experience. And it's nothing about money. It can't be, um, because I don't want to fall into that trap again. And I'm also like, I turned 38 years old and I I need to start building up my life and some stability. Like when I went to Vietnam, I felt like I was doing what I should have done when I was 25, but I did it 10 years late. I did it when I was 35, and then now I've come back and I've kind of started from scratch. Um, yeah, but anyway, I know how to do coding and art and all this useless stuff that doesn't help me earn income, and it's kind of sad, but that's just how it is. And yeah, so now I plan to spend roughly 2 days a week on this and just have play around and see what happens. So that's been an update on my games career, my channel. Thanks for listening. Bye.